What's going on, game players? How are you guys doing? Oh my goodness, I have a very, very special guest on the podcast this week to give us hopefully just a little insight as to how it is to be a developer. Now, if you guys don't know who I'm talking about, this gentleman has worked on a new game, a new IP that is called GTFO. I'm sure you've heard about it. It was on IGN where they had a demo of it. It's a fabulous looking game. I'm here with Mr. Simon Viclund, who is a game developer on the team. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. It is greatly appreciated.
Oh, no problem. I'm good to answer your first question, and that was a big introduction. I hope I can live up to this.
Oh, you'll be
fine. Introduction. It sounded like very special guest. I don't know about that. I'm just a lowly game developer, but yeah, hope I can shed some light on whatever questions you have.
Absolutely, most definitely. So the first thing I want to talk to you about, Simon, is, I want to start off by saying congratulations to you guys on the release of GTFO. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Simon, but you guys released on, I believe, December the 9th?
That's correct, yes.
All right, December the 9th on PC. And what I found interesting about this is I went over to Metacritic just to check the score of the game to see what, the users are saying about the game. And I got to tell you, Simon, you guys are sitting at a 8.0, which is a very solid score. And what I wanted to know, you as a developer, you who have put your, time, blood, sweat, and tears into this project. As a developer, do you guys pay attention to Metacritic, and does that really matter to you and the team, out of curiosity?
Actually, no. I hadn't checked the Metacritic score, but that's nice. That's really nice. 8.0. I think what matters more than that is the user score within Steam, because that's really what you see when you go into these GTFO sort of store page, virtual store page on Steam, and you have actually 89% in favor of the game. On Steam, you can only give thumbs up or thumbs down, and that's 11% thumbs down versus 89% thumbs up, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think that tips more people who are on the fence about whether they should buy the game or not. That more than Metacritic, because it's sort of an outside thing you got to go look for,
Absolutely. That has to feel great, man. Out of curiosity, how many years, I guess, would you say you guys had actually put into developing this game? Out of curiosity, GTFO.
4 years. A team of 8 to 10 people.
My goodness. So
I've been working on it for 4 years. Yeah. No, it feels absolutely amazing. Like, we weren't sure when we were working on the game whether there was we knew that, if you do a niche game, hopefully it finds its audience. They're out there, people who want a game that's more punishing and harder and doesn't, lead you by the hand as much as games tend to do these days. A really challenging game that really, sort of raises the bar for what the game expects from players in terms of coordination and communication, and, really pushes the boundaries in terms of the co-op experience. In our mind, a lot of games that claim that they're co-op games are really just games where you can play alongside one another, not necessarily playing together and relying on one another, and, where cooperation is critical for survival, so to speak. So we knew we made a game that wasn't for the masses. It's difficult. It's really punishing, and it's not for everyone. We know that. But we didn't know whether we could find a large enough audience to really, put food on the table, so to speak. Like it is a risk, Our game is, I mean, we're a small team and it hasn't cost that much to make the money, to make the game, compared to like a Call of Duty game or something that has to be more like, it's too big to fail. It has to have like single player campaign and multiplayer, options and it has to appeal to a much broader audience. And we're really focusing, like laser focusing on one thing and trying to make the co-op experience ocean deep rather than having like puddle deep. If we try to do different game modes and stuff, we'll spread ourselves too thin across that, and then start trying to make, a single player campaign or, we don't even have like cinematic cutscenes or anything like that. We just hope that people find the gameplay exotic enough or interesting enough, novel enough really. It's overwhelming almost to see that, people really, really like it. And as expected, not everyone does, some people really hate it. But, if enough people like it, it puts food on the table, for us. And that's like, really the indie game developer's dream. You can't really hope for much more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're living in an era now where, more difficult games actually, it's kind of a hot thing right now. You have games like Neo, you have games like Dark Souls that it's not for everybody, but that market that actually are into those kind of games, man, they go out there and they really, really show a ton of support. I mean, I'm more of a, I guess I kind of, it's not for me as far as like the Dark Souls games is what I'm saying. Like very, very difficult because I come from the Nintendo era, where the Nintendo games, they were broken, brother. I mean, they were terrible. You would get to certain stages, like, have you ever played Battletoads on the Nintendo, on the original Nintendo? It's like games like that, brother, that I would play and I would just struggle with.
The water ski level.
Oh my goodness. Come on, brother. You know what it is, man.
Yeah. I played an NES. I had an NES back when I was like 5 years old in 85. 86.
Right.
Yeah. I played a lot of Nintendo back. That's where I started really, consuming games,
Oh man. So we're basically, I guess, from like around the same era then, because I had actually started out on the, ColecoVision and moved up to the, Nintendo Entertainment System, which was like nothing I had ever seen at the time. And ever since that time, I've just been hooked. But, so it's one of those things, man, where for me, just the hard games, they're tough, but it's such a big crowd of people that enjoy those. And just to ask you just a little bit more about that as far as the difficulty goes, Simon, what actually made you guys focus, on that, on, the difficulty of the game, knowing that it might not be for everybody, but for the people that will enjoy it, we're going to do that. What made you guys laser in on that? Just the difficulty of it.
Well, 3 of the members, we're currently 9 members, in the team. And, I want to say the name 10 Chambers sort of implies that we've promised ourselves that we're not going to go above 10 members, so we're going to stay small. Wow. It's sort of in the name, sort of we have that, proclaim that promise to ourselves. Currently we're 9, and a handful of consultants that aren't like permanent members necessarily of the team. But anyway, we're 9 people, and 3 of those 9, including me, worked on the Payday games.
Oh, I'm familiar with those, man. Oh, wow. That's a pretty big franchise.
Yeah, three of the members of 10 Chambers Collective worked on, and actually were core development team members of behind Payday the Heist and Payday 2. So I made I helped with some game design on the first game. Ulf designed the entire game, was like creative director and everything. I made all the sound design for the first game and all the music, and also voiced the character of Bane, which is the guy you have in your ear that gives you all the instructions and stuff. That was really shoestring budget games. We were like, it's cheaper if one within the team does the stuff, and then if we do like last minute changes to the level design, and we need to change the narration or the voice that guides through the map has to say something different. We don't have to like book the studio again and bring the voice actor in and stuff, because we can just record it within the studio. Right. So that was really the reason why I did the voice in the first game. And then for the second game, we had more money, and I was like, let's scrap that character. Cause I don't want to do the voice anymore. And that was just for necessity, basically. Right. I'm not a voice actor. We can find someone better. But by then the character had become sort of a staple of if you can call it a series, by the second game. But anyway, we decided to keep him. So I did that voice for I'm on a tangent now. What I wanted to say,
it's okay.
We worked on the Payday games, and so we know the 4-player co-op PvE first-person shooter genre pretty well, but we wanted to push it further than what we'd done in the Payday games. And it's difficult to do within a franchise that's already sort of dug down in the wheel track. Sort of, you got to start something completely new to shift as much as we wanted to shift away from what Payday was, which is the reason why we had to be come up with a completely new IP, set in a different world and, with different characters and everything, so that people would accept, the game would sort of, it's so different that we gotta find sort of a new audience. We think that, some people within the, Payday community would absolutely love, GTFO, and everyone, certainly if they're into PvE, co-op, first-person shooters, should definitely check it out. But it's not like if you like or love Payday, you're going to absolutely love GTFO. That's not necessarily the case, because the GTFO has such a different pace. It's much slower, much more strategic.
Yeah.
Much more punishing, and you go way longer, and it's easy to die, and then you got to start all over again, and the maps can be, you can be in there for 50 minutes, 70 minutes, something like that. So yeah, it's a grueling sort of experience. And then if you try to run and gun, which is completely possible in the Payday games, you're going to be whipped into submission by GTFO. Either you're going to rage quit, or you're going to change that strategy, and you have to go slow, and you have to avoid combat when it's possible.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And as opposed to Payday 2, you can actually go start in stealth and then come out of stealth and then go back into stealth. In Payday, the stealth system is sort of more an on-off switch, and then when it's off and you go loud, you can never go back into stealth. Whereas in GTFO, it goes up and down, and it helps the.
Would you say like the game mechanics, or go ahead?
No, that just the level of excitement. You're going back and forth into different sorts of action or different sorts of gameplay within the same mission, and it really it's an interesting thing where I don't know if I can curse.
We can edit it, man. Go ahead, brother. It's okay.
You can bleep it. Well, if the poop hits the fan, let's say that. when poop hits the fan, if you can survive that onslaught within that room, that's sort of an isolated sort of incident, and then as you move into the next room, if the door was closed between the rooms and everything, you're back into stealth, because the monsters in that next room are dormant, and they haven't been, you didn't wake them up necessarily because you had a firefight in the previous room. So you're kind of going back into stealth, and you can learn from your mistakes, because breaking the stealth and going into, going loud, really just, if it's sometimes it's unavoidable, but if you avoid it, it's preferable, because you can, all it does is really, consume your resources, your health, your ammo, and it's really scarce in GTFO.
Yeah.
So At this point, I've completely forgotten the original question.
No, it was fine. I was just, you know what? I was just asking, why you guys had actually put more of a emphasis on, making the game a little more difficult. But I think you answered it, though. You're all right, man. It's fine. It's fine. I guess
it's tightly tied to the fact that we wanted to push the envelope in terms of, cooperation and really force players to rely on one another and coordinate and communicate and everything. It's tied to, the fact that we sometimes give information to just one player so that in order for the entire team to know it, that player has to share the information verbally. It's tied to the difficulty, definitely, because if you're forced to rely on one another's, resources, and you have to pool together, all the ammunition and health and everything, and really share, and really, point your weapons in the same directions, then you.
Let me ask you this, Simon. With the game, like you said, it's a real big emphasis on stealth. That's actually one of the bigger parts of the game. And as I was looking at the game, man, it looks like just one small move, like you said, when you guys were, because I looked at your IGN first look when you guys were playing co-op, right?
Yeah.
And I remember you saying, they haven't woken up yet. It was one of the guys on the team. They were like, well, he hasn't woken up yet, just stealth kill him. So it definitely does bring some kind of a very tense, feeling to the game when you're moving around and you can't be loud. And as soon as you shoot off a shot, you're getting swarmed, by the enemy. Was that the stealth element, was that also to make the game give you that intense, feeling of, sheesh, we got to work together as a team and, do the best we can to get out of the situation, versus, like you said, if it's run and gun, it's not as much tensity there, it's not as intense, so was that, part of the design decision as well, that you guys were trying to portray, the game as being a very intense kind of game as well in the environment?
Yeah, I think a lot of design decisions sort of are made immediately once you start going down that route. It's really, once we decided that we wanted to make a hardcore co-op experience, then certainly the entire horror aspect sort of fell into place, because the horror atmosphere by itself makes players want to stick together, because the world feels much more dangerous, and you don't want to go, all Leroy Jenkins and run off on your own and just, trying to survive, or do some sort of renegade mission, You want to stick together, so that it lends itself to that,
Definitely.
Or that lends itself to co-op. And then within the horror genre, you have the survival horror genre, and GTFO sort of taps into that with its resource management. You really, it's always like short on ammo or health, and you really got to look for it. And the game doesn't actually reward you with ammo and health when you kill enemies. You don't get anything from killing enemies.
Ooh.
You don't get experience points. You don't get health drops. You don't get ammo drops. Nothing. It just drains your resources. You find ammo and health and stuff in the surroundings as you're walking around. But of course, walking into a room, is not the way towards the goal. It's always a danger, because you might wake up the monsters inside. So, it's not like you can walk around and just collect all the ammo and all the health, and it's no big deal. It's always a risk, So you're happy when you find that stuff, and when you run into monsters that you can't avoid, going in a firefight with. Maybe a firefight would be where they're actually shooting back. These guys are not carrying weapons, but anyway, they drain your resources, really. Wow. The difficulty has to be really high and really, up there, so that you got a pulse. Even when I play the game, as you say, a run and gun game would not be as intense. At least it's a different sort of intensity when it's a run and gun game. And I'd say that it's sort of more superficial in many ways. Like
it's like an adrenaline rush almost, kind of, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can sort of run around and do things just by, you know, some sort of a almost reptile, you know, reaction sort of thing just takes over, and you start just, you know, moving the reticule between all the heads, and you take headshots and you run around and shoot, and it's just, you know, sort of, I don't know how I should. I'm not finding the words, but anyway, the danger, the constant danger, and the necessity to maintain a 360 threat, you know, awareness in GTFO really puts this sort of oppressive atmosphere into the game. And even I, you know, when I'm playing, I'm really like, it's really, when I start thinking about it, I got to you know, my heart is beating in my chest, because it's really like, I don't want to die here. Right. Sometimes when I'm trying out, you know, weapon sounds, and I'm tweaking, you know, the audio in the game and putting new sounds into the game, I'm just dropping into some work in progress part of this underground complex where the game takes place, walking around on my own. Maybe just trying to, like, suddenly it's a game for me. Like, I don't have to complete this map, but I gotta make it to this prop, or I gotta make it to this door where I've implemented. And there might be, like, randomly placed monsters between me and this thing. And it's suddenly in my work, I gotta get to this thing in order to test whether the sound is actually implemented correctly.
Right.
And then it's in between. And I gotta, like, to get my job as a sound designer done, I gotta make it past these monsters, and I'm all alone. And I'm suddenly like, I got a pulse, you know, cause I gotta survive, cause I have a purpose. I gotta reach this thing, complete this task that I have as a sound designer. It's not even me really playing the game to complete the map. It's just, you know, the game development. And it's weird. Maybe, we obviously have these test levels where we can, you know, spawn props and just, you know, where no monsters are. Mm-hmm. Where there are no monsters. We can just walk around and try stuff out. But every once in a while you want to try it in its environment where everything is like there, and maybe you can hear the monsters breathing in the background, and you want it's context, and there's really no other way. I can put God mode on, but that would sort of ruin. I want to feel this, you know. Mm-hmm. I want to put myself in the player's sort of situation and experience the sounds that way. And it, you know, even me as a game developer who knows, you know, what's going on behind the curtain, and I know the ins and outs of the AI and how everything is structured, it's still super creepy. It's still, it's difficult. To circle back to your question, the difficulty is really, once we decided that we want to have a game that really pushes the boundaries in terms of, you know, putting that, you know, requirement on the players to really, you know, stick together. It's almost like it's more for people who play, like, you know, Rainbow Six sort of games.
Very,
you know,
strategic, more of a strategic.
More slow paced and more like, you do this, I do this, we have our tasks and everything, where, you know, whereas, Payday 2, which was the previous game we worked on, was more like, you know, you can just jump in and just be, you know, bunny hopping across the map, and everyone is like overpowered, sort of, if you play the game long enough, and we didn't want to ever get to that point, or have that sort of, you know, even the possibility of that being the case in GTFO. So it has to be really like oppressive and difficult, and always, you know, it's always, that fear of dying, start all over again. There are no like save checkpoints where, we just have to replay the last 2-3 minutes or something like that. There's nothing like that. It's supposed to be more and more like the stakes are raised, you know, every minute that goes, you know, that's another minute that you gotta do again if you die. So by the end of an expedition, it's really like, we really got to do this now, because we know we got to do all of this again if we die now. and you're going to get better. You got to fail upwards. You got to somehow learn from your mistakes, and the game, randomizes some aspects, the placement of enemies and the allotment or the distribution of enemy types and stuff like that. The placement of mission critical items that you got to pick up, like key cards and stuff like that, and also the resources, health and weapon ammo pickups and stuff like that. So enough is different to always keep you on your toes, but the geometry is always the same, so that you can sort of, within the team, talk about what you're doing in certain intersections and where you need to go and stuff like that. So it's supposed to be. It has to be really difficult, yeah, and that sort of came from the idea that we wanted to make the game really force players to stick together.
Gotcha. No, it absolutely makes complete sense, most definitely. And you know what? Just speaking on the intensity, of the game, and having to stick together and, survive together. Now, I did notice that you guys did take some inspiration from the Aliens movies for the game, I believe, for the environments.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, which it does show, it does show. But what I wanted to know, and this is going to be an off question, but I just have to ask, with the Alien movies, we know that was the nemesis. Everybody was trying to rally together to kill, this queen alien that was on the ship. Was there ever a time that you guys thought of having maybe a nemesis, just come in every once in a while just to shake things up a little bit? I guess kind of like Resident Evil does, a nemesis just breaks through the wall every once in a while, and then you got to fight them off and get back to the mission at hand. Out of curiosity.
Yeah, I at this point I have to stress the fact that the game is in early access. We never mentioned it. You said the game was released on December 9th.
Yes,
last
sir.
year, which is correct. But it was released into early access, and we got to point that out. So the game is very much still a work in progress. And yes, we have those ideas, and we're working on them. And I can't say much more than that.
That's fine.
We want to, leak some information and talk about what's coming. We have a public roadmap for the game so that people know what we're working on currently and what's planned for the future. And there's always, like, we have the one thing that will always be there is, like, there will be new monsters, new weapons and gadgets. There will be new environments. There will be new scenarios and objectives that sort of change the what you're doing down there, and the combination of all these different elements, and environmental hazards as well, like poisonous gas or something like that forces you to go between these oxygen refill stations, and things that just add another level of something you need to do in order to survive, not just move and shoot.
Right.
You got to think about that oxygen level. Stuff like that. It just adds another layer of complexity to the survival.
Absolutely.
Keeps
the player engaged a lot more.
Yeah. And obviously an idea like that, a monster that can't be killed, that just pops up every once in a while, or you walk into its dwelling, you go into a certain part of the map and you start seeing, I don't know, the poop from this thing or whatever, like some signs in the environment that they're, this thing is here, We gotta stay on our toes, because if that thing pops up, we gotta run, we know we can't kill that thing.
Exactly.
That fits into GTFO like perfectly. So yeah, it's not in the next update or anything like that, but we have a lot of ideas for different types of monsters that, that just switches the player's approach to the current situation. It's not always like, headshots and kill them all.
Exactly.
Monsters that actually, it's better to like, if someone or more people, members of the team, like, point their lights toward that monster, and like, light is actually, like, your flashlights are actually what keeps it in check. things like that. It's not necessarily the weapons that are the solution. You have to do different things, So we have, weird ideas to just mess with a player.
That sounds awesome, man. Absolutely. I guess, well, with you guys, right, being a smaller team, independent team, I wanted to get your thoughts on how do you feel about a service like Game Pass, out of curiosity? It's, Microsoft, they're doing big things with Game Pass. They're getting a lot of developers into the service. They're putting their own first party games in there day and date. You as a indie developer, how do you view Game Pass, out of curiosity? I've always wanted to know how you guys feel about a service like that.
Well, we're open really to anything. We want our game to reach as many potential gamers as possible. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the first problem would be that we don't have the game is not available on Xbox.
Right.
It's being developed on PC exclusively at the moment.
Okay.
But if this PC version proves to be successful enough, and or if we have some kind of an opportunity opens up the possibility of porting the game, or getting help porting the game, or getting finances to porting the game, or whatever, we would absolutely love to put the game out on consoles as well, one or more.
That would be awesome.
We don't discriminate against any particular method of distribution at this point.
Absolutely.
That would be weird. Well, the first thing I guess would be to actually create a console version of the game.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to cross that bridge when we reach it, sort of.
Gotcha. No, I definitely understand that. I have, just as a gamer in general, who mostly I game on console, I've always wondered, and I don't even know if you could answer this question, but PC, they get so many different games on that platform. Do you know why? And like I said, I'm not sure if you can answer it or not, but just from your perspective, why do you think that some games, they just don't come to the console? I mean, and this is not to put you on the spot. I mean, GTFO just looks amazing. It looks great. I mean, the gameplay looks buttery smooth. I'm just curious to know, how come that possibly doesn't happen more as far as like getting the games over on the console that were on the PC?
Well, I guess, first off, the games are developed on PC.
Right.
No games are developed on a PlayStation or on an Xbox. Those are not development platforms.
Exactly.
You develop on PC or a Macintosh, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I think that's way fewer projects. Game developers tend to work on PC, and then you have, if your game works as you're developing it on your PC, for a fact that it runs on a PC, right?
Right.
And there's no first party on PC. There's no central organization that says, oh, you have to meet those, requirements or, quality, marks or anything. It's just, you can just put it out there.
Okay.
And Valve are just, as long as it runs, and it's not porn, or they have a few guidelines, but they're way looser than first party on Xbox and PlayStation or Switch for that matter, or any first party then would be, obviously, for those who don't know the lingo of game development, but first party for Xbox obviously is Microsoft. They own the console, and they want to make sure that Xbox doesn't get the reputation of being a console where there's a lot of games, but you got to wade through all these cheap games or bad games, and that's what the PC market is kind of like. There's a record level of indie games being released on Steam now. These days, people are just putting it out there, and a lot of games are just what's called an asset flip, where it's like you've bought these cheap graphical assets. You didn't even make the props in the game or the characters or anything yourself, and you just put them together and, make it work as much as a game that you can actually make sort of like screenshots and stuff, and you can actually move around in the game, but there's not a lot of game actually, it's not balanced, it's not working properly, it's not bug free, and they put it out there, and they're hoping that, they put so little effort into it that it just, a couple of hundred people buy it and are fooled into buying this game, then you can make your money back. And it's just, rising to the top of all this. It's sort of like the App Store, on iPhone, there's so much being produced. There's so much out there, that you gotta have luck or money to rise to the top and actually, be picked up and be featured on some sort of the top lists or, something that just makes the potential customers see your product within the sea of products. So yeah, that's something that first party wants to avoid. And then they have all these requirements, TCRs, what is it? Technical, I don't even remember, but it doesn't matter. They have like this huge, almost book of things that a game needs to match in order to work for their console.
Oh, so, wow.
Like, once you want to release on an Xbox, you have to have this, message whenever like the controller loses its battery.
Oh yeah,
the game needs to automatically pause, and then you have to have that message on the screen, and it needs to be in French, and it needs to be in Spanish, and it needs to be in Italian, and it needs to be in Japanese and whatnot. And that's not like a central system for Xbox. That's just unique for your game.
Right.
So it has to be worked into the game, and when you're putting your game out on Xbox, they're going to run it through tests to make sure that you meet all of these requirements or enough of these requirements. Every bug or every feature, every such requirement that you don't meet is like a deduction, in terms of points. Some are like 1 point deductions, and some are 2, and some are 3 point deductions. And you can't like have more than 20 deductions. And then they just drop your game back to you. They stop testing the game. You don't know whether, if they would have continued testing the game, if they would have found more of these deductions.
Right.
We're not wasting more time. That's their attitude, which is correct, of course. We're not wasting more time testing this game for you. You got to fix these things and get fewer deductions in order to release on our console. I think maybe the first time, I don't know what is now. I actually haven't worked on hands-on on a console release for like 10 years.
Gotcha.
But back in 2011, when I did, if I recall correctly, the first test is free. But then if you fail the first test and you got to submit for a second test, it start costing money because they got to put man hours into testing your game, and you've already failed once, and they don't want you to think of it as something like, we'll just fix a few things and submit it again on Tuesday. Like you gotta put your work in, and if it costs money, it's suddenly an investment for you. You got to make it through on as few attempts as possible. So you're really putting an effort in there. So it starts to cost money.
Man.
So yeah, it's much harder to release a console game than it is to release a PC game. And then obviously you're on a platform that has fewer games, and your game potentially has, a greater chance of actually being noticed among all the fewer games that are available on that platform. But yeah, this is the same for PlayStation, with Sony. Sony want to guard their
I guess their brand and
their
their
hard
name,
work,
I guess.
exactly, their name and their brand, and want to make sure that, PlayStation doesn't get this reputation of being a platform where there's a lot of like buggy games and games that don't work as intended.
Yeah.
And, this one thing that I had as an example where the battery runs on your controller, it's like if you unplug or the Wi-Fi goes down, or you unplug some cable, or, there's like 1,000 things that you can do. Mm-hmm. Earlier, you remove the disc, it's just so many things.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Sheesh,
and then just to make it harder, Sony and Microsoft, it's almost like Sony looked at Microsoft and like, oh, so they have this thing. Okay, we have the same thing, but it's a little bit different. And Microsoft looking at Sony and they're like the same. Like, oh, they have this requirement. Yeah, we're going to have it, but it's a little bit different. So it's not like you as a developer can do it like something that works across the board. I remember when we made that game back in 2010 or 11, I worked as a creative director on a game called, released on the Xbox Live Arcade called Bionic Commando Rearmed.
Yeah, man, I have that game. I actually have that. I thought it was a good game.
Yeah, glad you liked it. I made the music and I was the creative director on that.
Oh, wow. Wow, that was a while back. Yeah. Well, wait, 2000, did you say 2010 around?
Oh, yeah, no. That was actually 2009, I think.
2009. Gotcha.
Maybe even 2008. So that, it's a while ago. So, I've been saying it was like 10 years ago. It was actually 12 years ago I worked on hands-on on a console release like that.
Right.
But yeah. Anyway, I remember, I don't speak French, not a word of French, but I remember that the button on the controller has a gender prefix in French.
Okay.
So it's like la button, whatever the word is, button, I don't know.
Right.
is like male, or un le button is like a female button.
Right.
Then it would, and then of course Sony had decided that the buttons on their controller are female in French. While Xbox has decided, or if vice versa, I don't know, I don't remember, but
Gotcha.
So they were like, yeah, you got a deduction if the gender prefix that you use to address or not address, what's the word? Refer to when you in an error message on screen, you refer to the button as male when it's actually female. Then you got a point deduction. It's on that level. It's silly. So yeah, that just gives you an image. We've been talking about this tangent for a long time now, but it's just give you an image of it's way more difficult and costly and time consuming to release on consoles. And it's for a reason. You know that first party don't want their console to be, they gotta be gatekeepers, for all the crappy games, because there's a lot of games coming out,
Definitely.
And that's on top of all the, bugs and crashes and stuff like that. That might be on, the same on PC, but these are just specific for the consoles, where it's like, it has to have the error messages and the game has to pause whenever, internet connection is lost or whatever. All these things. There's way less of that on the PC. So yeah, it's easier to develop on PC. And as I said in the beginning, if you're developing on PC and the game runs when you're developing it, you're sort of already proving to yourself that the game is running smooth on the platform on which you're supposed to release it. Right. Whereas, the memory allocation and things might be different on a PlayStation from a PC. It's easier from the perspective that, all of PlayStation 4s are the same. On PC, obviously, you have the problem where, everyone has different sound cards, everyone has different motherboards, everyone has different, no one has sound cards. Sorry.
Yeah.
No one has sound cards, sorry.
Right.
Graphics cards. Everyone has different graphics cards, everyone has different, whatnot. Everyone has different amount of, RAM and different, access time on their hard drives, all these things that can mess up a game. So yeah, that obviously is a difficulty for developing on PC that is not present on consoles. But yeah, the first party is doing, everything they can to counter or to sort of, compensate for that and make, things harder for developers.
Exactly. Yeah, I tell you, Simon, I had no idea that you guys had to go through so many loops and hoops and stuff to get a game on console, because I've just sat here, for years, you hear about so many games coming out on PC and you're like, man, why don't a lot of these come over to the console? I would think that, the developers and the team will want to see their games over on the console. But that explains a lot. I really had no idea it was so much that went into getting your game on a console versus having it on PC. Good gosh.
Yeah. And it makes sense once you start thinking about it, that it has to be like that. So it's just, as a developer, it's just, we have to accept this if we want to release on Xbox. Microsoft has these demands, and you just gotta roll with it.
You gotta roll with the punches, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then, so it makes sense now. I hope, when you're talking about ports, porting games is actually, it's work, it's hard work to actually make something that's already running smoothly, maybe even on a PC, to actually run on a PlayStation, because, it has a different, like, memory allocation and things you can't just, Xbox is practically a PC.
Yeah.
Whereas, Sony's and Nintendo's, platforms or consoles are not quite PCs. They have some different, a different structure.
Okay.
Yeah, architecture, like hardware architecture, and so you got to make use of your things. You might need to, like, tweak the size of your, how you allocate the memory, and how, the size of the textures in the game can't exceed a certain limit because they have a certain, like, processor that works on that specific thing or whatever. You have to do some coding and work to make it work on some consoles. So yeah, porting a game to consoles is actually, it's not just sending your PC version to first party and just release this game.
Right.
Which is why you gotta have an actual dev station, is what it's called, a dev kit.
Okay.
Which is like an Xbox, which is like open for you to upload your stuff to and try, like, in progress games. And those things cost, like, $1,500 a piece, and you gotta you gotta actually buy it from Xbox, or from Microsoft or Sony. Yeah.
Right.
And then, probably several people in your team needs that. So that's an investment.
Oh, shucks. Oh, wow. I was thinking, I'm going to tell you, Simon, I was thinking that $1,500, okay, that's not too bad. But then when you think about everybody on the team might need one, that adds up very, very fast and gets very expensive.
Yeah. So it's almost like, it's an investment. You gotta, sometimes when Microsoft or Sony really wants you to develop your game for their platform, they will send you these things free of charge. But then you really gotta, that's a show of, appreciation, or, they really show interest in your product eventually ending up on their platform.
Yeah.
But then by then you gotta have, a reputation as a developer, I don't think that, those who, develop like Call of Duty or Rockstar, need to, like, we need to buy PlayStation 5 dev kits now, no, they're gonna be sent to you because those platforms want your games on them,
Definitely. Well, Simon, just to circle back to GTFO, what I wanted to ask you, and I understand that, you guys, the co-op, that was, something that you guys were already familiar with the Payday, franchise, but was there ever a time that you and the team thought maybe this game could be a single player game? Was that ever a conversation that you guys had, or was it always from the jump going to be a 4-player co-op game?
No, it was always once we decided to like, let's do something different. Like let's do something. I think Ulf, who founded 10 Chambers Collective, he was working with like one other guy, and they were working on some sort of a isometric, top down isometric sort of. Isometric and top down doesn't really that's like clashing.
Right.
Isometric. Almost retro-ish game where it's like a city and there's a lot of zombies and you gotta like shoot your way through these crowds of zombies. And they were working on something that was more like had a retro feel to it. That wasn't a third-person adventure game or a first-person game or anything like that. It was just an isometric sort of experience. And then they were like, or Ulf was like, no, I wanna do something, a bigger thing, and let's do something that requires a slightly larger team. So he recruited some other people. Everyone in 10 Chambers is like a former colleague of Ulf. So we're all like old friends and colleagues from way back, and
that's awesome.
Have a certain sort of culture and team sort of spirit. But from the get-go then, when he decided, like, let's do something, let's correct what we consider, went wrong, sort of, or missed let's pursue the missed opportunities of the Payday franchise. And, but right there and then, it was just, we're so few, we gotta put some laser focus on this one thing and not have, let's have a horde mode where you're just, standing around and trying to survive as long as possible. Yeah, we could do that, but that would, divert our attention from something else. And, if we put enough of that sort of thing, single player campaign or whatever in there, it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be, it's wider, but it's puddle deep, and we want to be narrow and ocean deep.
Gotcha.
That was what it was all about, really.
Sounds good to me. And like I said, once again, Simon, the game's aesthetic, how it looks, it's a very, very good looking game. It looks great. I'm just curious to know what engine did you guys use for GTFO?
GTFO is made with Unity.
Wow, really?
Yeah. It's the fact that you say "wow" really is almost like underlining the misconception that Unity can only be used for like side scrollers and like indie games and like mobile games and stuff like that. But it's a really powerful engine. You just need to use it, know how to use it really, and it's an awesome engine to prototype in. From idea to something, sort of a quick and dirty, like actual test of that idea is really quick. And you got, all these tools, and everything is modular. I guess most engines are modular, but we love working in Unity, and it works really well.
Wow, that's actually very interesting. And I don't want to come off like putting an X on Unity. It's not that, not at all. It's just pretty impressive, what you guys have been able to do with that engine. Wow. No,
we're aware about, and I think Unity themselves are sort of aware that they've been pigeonholed.
Yeah.
That in that way, but we don't mind at all that GTFO becomes a game that sort of disproves that misconception, because it really is a misconception. It is a fantastic engine that you can make great things in. And to circle back to the aesthetics that you were talking about, I think the game looks really, really great. Especially considering we're such a small team.
I was going to say that too. I mean, my goodness. It's
of course, the dramatic lighting helps a lot.
Yes.
But and the fog and everything. But you got to work on these elements as well. Even, selective or, what's the word? Scarce lighting, I guess.
Okay. Hey, that works for me.
Would be, even if it sort of serves the purpose of making it atmospheric and creepy.
Yeah, I guess like dim, like the lighting being dim or something. Gotcha.
Exactly. Yeah. You still got to work on that. But I'd like to think that we've made a game that even by, watching a screenshot or two, you can immediately sort of make out, oh, this is that game, There's a lot of first person shooter games, but GTFO has something in the lighting, especially in the lighting, we're going quite bold with the colors. It's like, it's like intensely green or intense, orange and sometimes almost like neon, colors in there. And a lot of games go for that desaturated, sort of beige, grayish, sort of muddy look. And we wanted to avoid that. The game, yes, is very dark, but, where there are colors.
Oh, they're
really popping. Yeah, exactly. And I think that sort of gives the game its own sort of visual character.
Absolutely, man. I mean, this has been absolutely wonderful, Simon. Before we wrap up, though, I did want to ask you, since you guys, are in-house, 10 chamber, chamber 10, is it less stressful, knowing that, you guys are working together, any marketing or any deadlines or, budget, all of that comes from, the team, you guys. Is it less stressful having you guys control what you're able to do with the game versus a third party, like a publisher coming in like EA or Ubisoft to actually, overlook the project? Is it a little easier and less stressful, that you guys are calling the shots and are able to release the game when you want to versus somebody else telling you when?
Yeah. Definitely. Absolutely. I don't even think that this game would be made if it was financed by a bigger publisher or made by a bigger developer. Because they would be, as we were talking about in the beginning, they want to make more money off a game, so they need to make a game that is, broad market, hitting many different demographics and target audiences and whatever. And it sort of becomes, something, it get watered down.
Gotcha. So it kind of can take away the vision of actually what the developer wanted to do in the first place, I guess.
Absolutely. Yes. So yeah, we're on a different sort of stress because we've put our own time and money, or obviously you put your own time in whatever you're doing, but right. Our own money into this and not knowing whether, the game would sell enough to actually put food on the table for us in the end. But yeah, the stress where if we were creatively controlled, or limited in our ability to exercise our vision, really. That would be a different sort of stress. And we've had that stress before in our careers enough, and we wanted to do something on our own for once. And I think, it would be difficult to see this game come from any other developer, really, because it's just such a singular vision mainly from Ulf, the founder of 10 Chambers Collective. And gamers should be happy that we're self-financed, because otherwise, gamers who like GTFO, obviously, the gamers that like GTFO should be happy that this is how we made the game, because otherwise this game wouldn't exist. I dare to be as bold as to say that, because it is such a niche sort of experience. It's such a narrow, targeted game towards, people who like playing together. Maybe they already have a team of 3 other players that they like to, play with, Left 4 Dead sort of games, in that pedigree of games, Payday or whatever, or more strategic sort of things like, Rainbow Six, as we mentioned earlier.
Right.
That sort of thing, you have a shorthand, between the team members. Everyone has their way of playing, and you rely on one another. You can play this game with randoms, but, and we're going to make that easier once we implement matchmaking in the game. But for now, you can find teammates and squad mates on the official GTFO Discord server. But yeah, you don't want to play with someone who doesn't have a microphone or doesn't speak your language or is away from keyboard every once in a while. You want to be able to rely on your teammates and know that they're going to do what you tell them to do or what they say they're going to do. So yeah, it's a niche. It's not for everyone, I keep repeating, but we just want to make sure that, no one buys this game. We don't want to be, come across as like, we'd never say that the game is like everyone will love it, because we know that that's not the case, and we just want to make sure that no one buys the game thinking it's something different.
Right.
GTFO is really, really difficult, and I think that's part of the appeal for the ones who like it.
Certainly.
Some people have approached us and said, like, can you have a light version of the game where it's like an easier difficulty or something like that? And we just want to, make sure, it should always be bragging. There should always be bragging rights whenever you reach that, expedition survived, result screen when you've beaten an expedition. Yeah. We want the game to be like whenever someone mentions within their, circle of gaming friends, like I play GTFO, and then everyone knows, that's the really, really hard game, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to lose that. So that's part of the brand. It's supposed to be hard.
Exactly.
So if you don't like, if you don't like the fact that it's hard, you're going to have to find another game that has whatever you like in GTFO, but is less hard. We're
and
not
I respect
going to make
that.
GTFO less hard. It's like, if you don't like Dark
Souls
beer.
Oh,
no,
dark
if you
beer.
don't like dark beer, you're not, you don't call Guinness and like, can you make a lager, beer? No. That's not what the brand is. That's they're making the syrupy, thick, dark beer. That's the thing. And if you don't like that stuff, you turn to another brand.
That's
so
right.
we want to be super clear about that GTFO is not for everyone, but for the people that it's for, they will not just casually like it. They will absolutely, fall in love with it. And that's what we've, I'm happy to say that's what we've, seen people really do.
Yeah, absolutely. Simon, I tell you, brother, this has been absolutely amazing to have you on. I truly can't thank you enough, sir. But before we leave, before we get out of here, is there anything that you would like to tell the fans out there or people that are even possibly on the fence of checking out or buying GTFO?
The one thing that is like different in terms of how GTFO works is that we're not actually building a game and like adding new maps to the game and just by the time it's like, when it's 32 maps, then that's the game, that's the 4-player campaign or whatever.
Right.
We're actually like right now there are 6 maps in GTFO, but we're working on new maps, and once we drop those maps, the 6 maps that are in now are going to get wiped, and you're not going to be able to play those again.
Oh,
so
man.
that's actually how GTFO is going to keep rolling during early access and even after early access. It's going to rely on us as developers actually releasing new maps all the time, and this is our way to make sure that the entire community of the game is focusing on the same set of maps at any given point during the game's lifetime. And it's horrible, obviously, for like completionists, because if you buy the game like 6 months after release, or even, 6 months from now, there are going to be a lot of like maps and stuff that you haven't experienced. It's not like we're going to put in like, cutscenes or dialogues between the characters and stuff like that, but just, in terms of certain expeditions with combinations of certain, environmental hazards with certain enemies and stuff like that, you're going to be missing out on some stuff that you're never going to be able to play because we can't roll back to those things in the future. That's just a creative decision that we made
That's awesome. No,
which is
that's so cool.
sort of like bold and weird.
That's the first time I've heard of that before, to be honest with you. I've never heard of that before. Wow.
So whatever is available in the game is just temporary, and then it's just going to be replaced with new stuff. And it puts sort of a pressure on the players to like, we got to beat these things, within
certain amount of time,
6 weeks or something like that, and then something new is going to drop, So it is a game where you sort of play what's available, and if you grow tired of it, you go play something else for a month or something like that, and then you're going to hopefully, we hope, certainly, come back to Payday, once we release something new, and we're constantly going to keep developing, dropping new weapon, so that you can mod your weapons with new scopes and new, whatever, parts for your weapons, but also like new monsters and new combinations of monsters and environmental hazards and all these aspects and elements. So yeah, that's an interesting part of GTFO that we did. If you go to the 10 Chambers YouTube channel, you can find a video where we sort of explain that concept and how we came about sort of hatching that idea.
I respect that. Simon, man, this is, like I said, this has been great. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And is there any social media things that you would want to plug for the listeners out there?
Everyone will find, if they go to GTFOthegame.com, they'll find the links to the Twitter. I run the Twitter, the Discord, and all our social platforms, really. Obviously, if you have Steam, just add the game to your Steam wish list, and then you'll get informed when there's a sale, or if there's like I guess maybe a free weekend in the future where you can actually try the game out, So that's a good strategy as well. Just add it to your wish list, and Steam will sort of keep tabs on the game for you, if the price goes down. If you're on the fence, that might help, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, guys, man, this has been absolutely awesome. Man, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So I was your host, Kiaun Mitchell, joined by Mr. Simon Viclund. It was a pleasure, sir. Thank you again for being on.
Pleasure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And with that being said, guys, we are out of here. But remember, as always, it is not about the consoles. It's about the games. So with that being said, you guys take care. Until next time, bye-bye.